Most people look at a Hollywood icon like Ana de Armas and see an overnight sensation who effortlessly glided from Havana to the top of the global box office. But what if I told you that behind that glowing complexion and intense on-screen vitality lies a story of profound physical adaptation, severe biological stress, and a masterclass in human resilience that completely redefines our understanding of health and high performance under pressure? The truth is that the human body does not achieve peak physical form, radiant cellular health, and cognitive sharpness by accident, especially when navigating the grueling shifts of international relocation, extreme emotional strain, high-profile relationship drama, and the brutal demands of Hollywood transformation. Today, we are peering past the red carpet glamour and luxury lifestyles through the lens of evolutionary medicine, metabolic health, and neurobiology to deconstruct the untold physical and psychological journey of Ana de Armas, uncovering the exact physiological blueprint of how a human being survives, adapts, and ultimately thrives when pushed to the absolute brink. To truly understand this remarkable biological journey, we must first look at where the foundation was laid, in Santa Cruz del Norte and Havana, Cuba, during the 1990s, a period known as the Special Period, which was characterized by severe economic constraints, regular blackouts, and widespread food shortages. From a health perspective, growing up in this environment meant a natural, involuntary adherence to what modern wellness experts now try to replicate artificially, a lifestyle entirely free of ultra-processed foods, high-fructose corn syrup, and industrial seed oils. Her early development was fueled by whole, unrefined foods, fresh local produce, and wild-caught marine protein when available, creating a robust gut microbiome and an incredibly efficient metabolic flexibility. When we look at modern chronic disease epidemics, so much of it stems from childhood metabolic insult caused by processed sugars and environmental toxins, but her early life, despite its extreme hardships, provided a pristine nutritional canvas. Furthermore, the lack of digital screens and constant connectivity meant that her circadian biology was perfectly synchronized with the natural light-dark cycle of the Earth. This synchronization is critical because the human endocrine system, specifically the production of growth hormone, cortisol, and melatonin, relies heavily on these natural cues during formative years. Her physical stamina, which would later become her greatest asset on grueling film sets, was forged in an environment that demanded constant physical movement, walking miles a day, and active physical engagement with the world rather than sedentary screen time. However, the true biological test began when she made the courageous decision to leave Cuba for Spain at age 18 with just a few $100s, a transition that represents a massive environmental mismatch. When an organism shifts from a tropical, high-sunlight, community-driven environment to a bustling European urban center, the nervous system undergoes a profound threat response. The sudden influx of artificial light, changed atmospheric conditions, and the immense psychological weight of starting completely over triggers the sympathetic nervous system, flooding the body with adrenaline and cortisol. For many, this chronic activation of the fight-or-flight response leads to adrenal fatigue, systemic inflammation, and a breakdown of the immune barrier, but her physiology demonstrated an exceptional capacity for allostatic load, which is the body's ability to maintain stability through intense physiological change. This resilience was put to an even greater test when she made the ultimate leap to Los Angeles in 2014, arriving with zero knowledge of the English language. Imagine the sheer cognitive load required to completely rewrite the brain's linguistic centers under intense pressure while simultaneously auditioning for high-stakes roles. From a neurological standpoint, this level of intense language acquisition in adulthood induces massive neuroplasticity, forcing the brain to form new synaptic connections at an accelerated rate, a process that demands immense mitochondrial energy. The brain consumes roughly 20% of the body's total energy, and under conditions of extreme cognitive stress and language immersion, that energy demand skyrockets. If mitochondrial health is compromised, an individual experiences severe brain fog, chronic fatigue, and cognitive burnout. Her ability to navigate this linguistic and cultural evolution while maintaining a highly demanding physical routine speaks volumes about her cellular energy production and metabolic efficiency. As her career accelerated into high-octane action roles, particularly her show-stopping turn in the James Bond franchise and her grueling physical transformation for the action thriller The Gray Man, her physical demands shifted from merely staying healthy to performing like an elite tactical athlete. To prepare for these roles, her training regimen had to adapt to induce specific physiological adaptations, focusing heavily on explosive power, agility, and muscular endurance. This level of training requires a meticulous balance of macronutrients to support tissue repair and prevent muscle wasting. When a performer undergoes hours of daily weapon training, stunt choreography, and high-intensity interval training, the body creates massive amounts of micro-tears in the muscle fibers, triggering an acute inflammatory response. If this inflammation is not properly managed through targeted nutrition, such as high-quality proteins for amino acid synthesis and dense micronutrients to combat oxidative stress, the body quickly enters a state of overtraining syndrome. This syndrome is characterized by an elevated resting heart rate, disrupted sleep architecture, and a severe drop in immune function. To prevent this, elite performers must utilize advanced recovery strategies, including targeted hot and cold contrast therapy to flush out metabolic waste, and specific mobility work to protect the joints from the repetitive stress of stunt performance. But perhaps the most profound physiological and psychological challenge of her career came with her portrayal of Marilyn Monroe in the film Blonde. To inhabit such an iconic and deeply troubled figure, she had to undergo a transformation that went far beyond the surface, requiring her to tap into deep emotional reservoirs for nearly a year of filming. From a psychosomatic perspective, the human brain cannot always distinguish between a real perceived threat and an intensely acted emotional trauma. When an actor repeatedly accesses deep states of grief, anxiety, and vulnerability, the brain triggers the exact same hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis that it would in a real-world crisis. This means that for months on end, her body was subjected to chronic spikes in cortisol and systemic stress hormones, which can severely disrupt thyroid function, compromise the gut barrier leading to intestinal permeability, and alter neurotransmitter balance, particularly depleting serotonin and dopamine. Navigating this intense emotional landscape requires an extraordinary level of psychological hygiene and nervous system regulation. To counteract the physiological toll of such deep emotional work, an individual must actively engage the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest branch of the nervous system, through deep diaphragmatic breathing, meditation, and deliberate grounding practices. Furthermore, the physical transformation for that specific role required a complete shift in body composition and posture. Adjusting the way one walks, breathes, and holds tension in the body alters the myofascial lines, which can lead to localized pain and structural imbalances if not carefully corrected with physical therapy and corrective exercise. Alongside these professional transformations, Ana's personal life became a subject of intense public scrutiny, most notably during her highly publicized relationship with Ben Affleck. Navigating a relationship in the blinding glare of the paparazzi introduces a unique form of chronic psychological stress known as social evaluative threat. From a health perspective, being constantly watched, tracked, and judged by millions of strangers activates the amygdala, the brain's fear center, keeping the body in a state of hypervigilance. This chronic state of alert alters the heart rate variability, a key metric of autonomic nervous system health, indicating a system under continuous strain. When a relationship of that magnitude ends under the watchful eye of the media, the emotional heartbreak acts as a literal physical stressor, activating the same neural pathways associated with physical pain. Processing interpersonal trauma while maintaining a flawless public image requires immense emotional resilience and a dedicated support system to prevent the stress from manifesting as autoimmune dysfunction or physical illness. Following these intense periods of personal and professional upheaval, her lifestyle shifted toward the pinnacle of luxury, moving into stunning estates and becoming the face of high-end luxury brands like Louis Vuitton and Estée Lauder. While a luxury lifestyle offers access to the absolute best in organic nutrition, private chefs, advanced wellness therapies, and elite trainers, it also presents its own hidden physiological hazards. The life of a global brand ambassador involves constant international travel, jetting across time zones for fashion shows and premieres, which inflicts severe damage on the circadian biology, a phenomenon known as jet lag or circadian desynchronization. Every time you cross time zones, the master clock in your brain, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, becomes uncoupled from the peripheral clocks in your liver, gut, and muscles. This desynchronization disrupts insulin sensitivity, compromises digestion, and drastically reduces the quality of deep, restorative sleep. Surviving this level of global luxury travel requires a highly strategic approach to biohacking, including the precise timing of light exposure, strategic fasting to reset peripheral clocks, and targeted supplementation to protect cellular health from the radiation exposure of frequent high-altitude flying. This brings us to a critical crossroad in understanding health, which is the absolute necessity of maintaining equilibrium across all pillars of wellness: physical, mental, and environmental, especially when operating at the absolute limits of human capability and public scrutiny. What we can learn from this remarkable journey is that true vitality is not a static state of being, but a dynamic, continuous process of adaptation. To cultivate this level of resilience in our own lives, we must understand the core principles of what makes the human machine thrive under pressure. First, we must prioritize metabolic flexibility by focusing on a foundation of whole, nutrient-dense foods, minimizing the modern toxins of processed sugars and chemical additives that disrupt our cellular machinery. Second, we must respect our biological rhythms, safeguarding our sleep and light exposure to ensure our endocrine system can repair the daily damage of psychological and environmental stress. Third, we must look at physical movement not merely as a tool for aesthetic modification, but as a non-negotiable requirement for cognitive health, cellular detoxification, and structural longevity. And finally, we must realize that managing the mind, processing emotional stress, and actively regulating the nervous system is just as critical to our physical health as the food we eat or the weights we lift, because a body operating under chronic, unmanaged stress will eventually break down, no matter how pristine its external environment might appear. Ultimately, the untold story of Ana de Armas is a powerful testament to the incredible adaptability of the human body and mind when supported by a strong metabolic foundation and an unwavering psychological resilience, showing us that with the right physiological baseline, it is entirely possible to navigate the most intense transitions, hostile environments, and grueling pressures of life while maintaining peak health and vitality. If you found this information valuable, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and let me know in the comments what topic you want to see next.